Florida State fans have plenty to say during today's Locked On Seminoles mailbag, including why they are not donating as much as they were before.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day each and every day right here on the nation's #1 podcasting network, Locked On. We are brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. We put the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there is more to you. One of the key topics that has been discussed not only on this show, but across any Florida State fan site, any newspaper covering the Noles, is the debt that has been taken on. Did they make the right decisions with it? That will be mixed in quite a bit during today's mailbag. Some of the questions that are asked by fans, some of the comments, all of it is in some way, shape, or form revolving around money. And the debt is part of that. That's a little later in the show. I'll have my own comments on that. But Alford's job status, that's something we're going to talk about. And we're also going to discuss just overall fans, some of the questions and comments that I've had on shows recently. I pull them up. And I also have a few questions in general, which I want to throw out there right now. I'm going to read them, then I'm going to go into the mailbag. But here are the 5 questions that I have for FSU fans. And if you're on YouTube, you can read this. But if you're not, here they are. And I will come back to these. Number 1, do you believe Florida State's $400 million plus in bond debt hinders major boosters from donating to the program? Number 2, if you donated to Florida State before, are you as likely to donate to Florida State if the current administration stays in place past the 26 season? Number 3, if you are regularly going to donate, what would it take for you to increase the amount that you normally send to Florida State? Number 4, in your opinion, does Florida State's chances of moving into the Big Ten or the Southeastern Conference decrease because of the current administration? Number 5, did Florida State make a mistake in overhauling Doak Campbell Stadium, or should the money have been used for NIL and other resources? So I'll go back to this. I just wanted to show them, but I'll go back to this here in just a little bit. And I want to just kind of read some of the mailbag stuff. We'll get into those questions again in segment 2, but I think some of those are going to be touched upon quite a bit. Hint, they are definitely. Number 1, this may be the funniest comment that I have seen in any way, shape, or form on any message board or anything else. It was on the Locked On Seminoles YouTube page, on a podcast that I had a day or 2 ago, talking about some of this stuff that we're kind of going over with the $400 million debt and the administration and all that. And I have no idea how he came up with this, but this is hilarious. The name of the poster is Bangkok Vice, and the comment is very simple. Going to need Winston to steal more crabs just to feed the team at this rate. I have no idea. Again, that's hilarious to me. Like, you might as well have a laugh in life. I just think that's funny. And I just wanted to mention it. Again, Bangkok Vice, well done. That is hilarious. No Fan X07 says, I stopped my booster check. Smaller programs are doing more with less, Fix it and we can talk. I think there's a lot of people with this sentiment. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think even the people that were, donating 100, 200, 1,000, 5,000 and under, like when they pull their money, it's a sign. I'm curious what the percentage, not the total amount, but the number of people that donated in 2025 was compared to 24, just the volume of people. I know there's been a decrease in funding, but was that a decrease in people too? Because if one major booster says, you know what, screw you guys, I'm not donating millions this year, it completely changes the average. But what is the total of people? I think that would be a fascinating thing to find out. Next up, Super Elvis 1951, an administration ran by idiots. Again, this was a post on my show and just talking about how they accrued the debt and some of the decisions they made, all that stuff. I'm seeing more posts now. Instead of going after Norvell, they're going after the administration. I don't know the exact, maybe I just missed it. And I know part of it was last fall. Like, hey, we need to fire him. But you heard those. But when was it like full-fledged, more information coming out about fans not liking the administration to Norvell? I think it's probably at least half the posts that mentioned Norvell mentioned the administration, if not mentioned him first. So I think this is a trend that's only going to grow. James B0255. Just because it hasn't been advertised does not mean there's not a plan. This is a totally different take here. I have a very distinct feeling that all will be explained here soon, and all you people just keep blaming the administration for this debt will feel foolish. Something tells me that person's not very logical, but whatever. Everybody's got their own opinion, and I want to give both sides of the story. Jimmy ERS 9615. The $400 million in debt is unrelated to Florida State's ability to fire Norvell and hire his replacement. The $400 million is in issued bonds, which have a small debt service between 3 to 4.5%. Think of the $400 million as Florida State's football mortgage. If anything, it makes it easier to pass the hat, as boosters did not already cough up $300 million in the last 3 years. More importantly, Norvell's buyout is not due in one payment. It can be paid in monthly installments through December of 2031. I do agree on the stacking on the buyouts, but that is why you hire Hartline or Stein at 6 years for $25-30 million, or if you want a more proven guy, Franklin at 5 for 40. By the time you would even think of firing them for performance, their buyouts are manageable. That is why you don't go after Kiffin like Alford leaked at 7 for 93, no offset, which would be a program killer for a guy that burns bridges like no one else. Obviously, this person knows something about finance and whatnot, and he is not a Michael Alford fan, probably not a fan of the administration. He didn't say it, but that seems pretty straightforward. I do want to make a couple points on this. He said hiring Hartline Stein at 6 years for 25 to 30. There's zero chance of that happening, and here's why. The agents are basically colluding against universities. If you do not hire their guy for more years and just hire total sums, you're not going to get them. They just won't go. This is a problem that where the unit, it's not a Florida State thing. Again, this is across the board. The universities, they're kind of stuck because there is a perception to who you hire. Obviously, it's a big deal. And you're not going to hire a guy for 3 or 4 years anymore. You're like 6 years is pretty low number. As crazy as that sounds. I'm not saying I agree with it. I understand the point that Jimmy's trying to make here, but especially a guy like Franklin, it almost has to be an 8-year contract with just about everything guaranteed or they won't come. Now, Hartline's in year 1 at USF. You might be able to do something there, and Stein, same thing at Kentucky. It's possible, but I bet it's not at 6 years. I'm being serious. Like there'd be a buyout too at the schools are at. Stein's at Kentucky. That's his home state. I would imagine it's going to be 8 years plus for just about any coach that you really want. That is a problem, and I don't know what you do about it. But anyway, when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about those questions that I brought up earlier in the show. That is next, right here on Locked on Seminoles. Indeed, hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match that, what you're looking for, Indeed Sponsored Jobs is the move for you, because instead of hoping the right person just stumbles across your job post, Indeed will help you match the quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people that fit your specific criteria, whether it's skills, experience, location, a certification that you have to have, whatever you set up, that is what Indeed will do. And if you're hiring, having Indeed take care of it saves you time and money to keep your business running at peak performance. And here's the best part of it. In the last minute or so I've been doing this, there have been, on average, 27 people hired by Indeed worldwide. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help you and your job premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. We are also brought to you by FanDuel. The Winter Games, which I was just watching a little bit ago, watching the skeleton, that is an awesome event. It is officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the stage once every 4 years. That's fact. I love the Winter Olympics, and I'm sure many of you do too, and FanDuel is a great way to check it out. And that's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel makes sense, from the medal counts to seeing your favorite athletes, the seeing events you're just not going to see anywhere else. Get all the details at FanDuel, and that drama and everything else. You can have a little bit of an extra angle on something you want to put some money on. The winter games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. If you want to take your game to the next level, check out the Everydayer Club down below in the description. There is a link that will explain everything, but here's the key and the number one reason you should go with the Everydayer Club. Anytime you take your pods on the go, $5 a month or $50 for the entire year, no ads. So whether you're going to the grocery store, going for a bike ride, going for a walk, going to the gym, no ads. Check out the Everydayer Club for Locked On Seminoles. Now let's discuss those questions that I mentioned a few minutes ago. Here they are. Do you believe Florida State's $400+ million in bond debt hinders big boosters from donating to the program? To me, I don't think this is necessarily a major thing, but there could be a few. This is subjective, and I don't think, again, there's no one answer. That's just my opinion. But what do you think? If you're watching this, comment on the YouTube page, find me on X at FBScout_Florida, whatever it may be. I think there is something to it, but not a lot. I think there's a little bit of a misconception. The look at that debt probably scares a lot of people. Why would I bother? I think it's pretty well explained. I was talking about in the last segment, one of the guys talking about this is bond debt. It's not the same as like a major loan with a high interest rate. It's 3 to 4.5%. So I don't think it necessarily is, but it is an eyesore. That I will grant you. Number two, if you donated to Florida State before, are you as likely to donate to Florida State's athletic administration if the current administration stays in place past the 2026 football season? So this is pretty straightforward. Are you fed up unless they have changes above Mike Norvell? That's another way I could put this. Let's just kind of go with that. If Norvell, even if he is canned, if the administration doesn't have quote unquote major changes, in other words, the people that would be the ones replacing Norvell, if they don't do that, are you as likely to donate? Does it matter at all? Are you unsure? Whatever it may be, comment on the YouTube page, because to me, this is the most fascinating of them. People are very touchy about management, whether you follow an NFL team, MLB, Florida State, I don't care what league it is. It could be a local thing that's, softball league that you played in and you like to help the local community and you donate to help the grounds crew. I don't know. If you don't like the leadership, there's a chance you're not donating. People get real touchy about it. So again, if they don't get rid of, it doesn't have to be just Michael Alford either. It could be people above him, board of trustees, whatever. If there aren't heads that roll and they don't put in somebody that you like, will you or will you not donate to Florida State after this next season? Number three, if you do donate on a regular basis, what would it take for you to increase the amount? This is a little more open-ended, and I'm guessing what I just asked on number two is probably the answer. You want to see something change, which makes sense. But if it's the other side of the coin, you think we need to donate more to get us back to where we need to be, fire away. Comment on the YouTube page. Number four, in your opinion, does Florida State's chances of moving to the Big Ten or the SEC decrease because of the current administration? I have a lot to say here, so let me throw this out. There are probably people in the Big Ten office, in the SEC office, that like people at FSU. This is a small world. Just like I'm a recruiting analyst, we all know each other. These administrations go to the same conferences. Some of them went to school together. Some of them work together. I don't think it's a big deal in general until you look at the facts. You have to throw friendships aside when you do business, at least to the best of your ability, because there's always bias. I think from everything I've heard, Michael Alford's a good guy, just using him as an example. I don't know him. I don't know the president. I don't know any of the BOT members, but it still helps when people perceive you as good individuals. Never heard anything bad about it. But Florida State is in a pickle. I don't know how in the world they could get out of the grant of rights. I don't know how in the world they would be able to do any of that stuff. And the fact that they're in such a pickle, I think it makes it harder for a conference like the Big Ten, just using them as one example. It could be the SEC. It doesn't matter. For them to really want to go after you, because they got to have faith that you're going to figure out a solution. If they're going to put work in on their end, Why would they do it if they don't trust you? And again, that's where you got to take the bias out. Then again, maybe they could work together in some way. I have no idea how you would get out of the grant of rights. And for those who don't remember, that is 2036. That is a complete death knell. It's not enough money. And I know they've had some deviations to it, and there's some other things you can get out of it. Maybe they've given them more opportunities. Like, I know there's been annulments to it. There are different agreement packages. Like, if you pay it this much during this year, all that, but there's still a lot of money going out. It's not as bad as the original, but I just don't see Florida State doing it. So it's really, really unique. And I don't think the Big Ten or SEC is going to hand Florida State money to get out. They're going to have to do it themselves. So that would be a really interesting fly on the wall scenario to hear somebody from FSU like speak to somebody in the SEC or Big Ten office. I'm not sure how that would work, but that's really fascinating to me. Number 5, did Florida State make a mistake at overhauling Doak Campbell Stadium, or should the money have been used for things like NIL for players, other resources like coaching maneuvers, or putting the money into other things in terms of their travel, how they handle investments? I don't know. Just open-endedly. 2 things from me. And again, comment down below, comment on the YouTube page. Number 1, Doak looks great. I think Doak Campbell looks really good. Now, from what I've heard, they really didn't do much on the visitor side. But this was, let's be honest, this was more about the suites. They're trying to get money. They're trying to get boosters to donate for suites and all that. I get it. But overall, like the entryway and some of the statues and all that look fantastic. So I have no problem with that. Number 2, I don't think anybody could have predicted, in Florida State's defense, that NIL was going to take off like this with the portal. It has went up exponentially. And it's killing Florida State and a lot of schools that don't have the quote-unquote mega booster that is currently contributing. I don't blame them for it, but I think some people would. And if you're one of them, again, comment on the YouTube page. Why do you feel that way? When we come back, I want to discuss a few more things about the $400 million in debt and some other ideas about why Florida State may or may not make some other moves. It's not just football. Remember, this is a complete athletic department. There's over 20 sports at FSU. I believe 21. Whatever the number is, it's a lot. And if Florida State doesn't manage those as well, it will not help football. Matter of fact, it will hinder football more. I think some of those decisions are really important. That is next here on Locked On Seminoles. Today's show is brought to you by Mazda, moving the game forward. This is the time of year that everything seems to come together, but behind the scenes, you've got to make the right decision. Something we've talked about today on Locked On Seminoles. But one of the things is your roster. And I have no idea who Florida State's quarterback is going to be, but at least they put themselves in a position with multiple guys at quarterback. I'm excited about Malachi Marshall. Had over 30 touchdowns last year at the JUCO level. They bring in Ashton Daniels, a guy who had a really good end of year for Auburn. And I'm still excited about Kevin Sperry. One of those guys is going to be the torchbearer for Florida State this next year. And by all accounts, they're good guys. I'm excited to see what happens with each of them this year. And it gives me hope for the Florida State future because there's going to be somebody emerge at quarterback. These types of situations remind us of what it takes to raise the bar. It's that extra work on and off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, the grit, and I never quit attitude. We put that same passion into every model, highlights that make the real. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there is more to you. Florida State has to make some really tough decisions about their sports, just like every school does. Are we going to cut? Are we going to fire a coach because we got to spend money on that? Or are they going to pull back on other sports spending? I don't know how you do that when you're in debt. And I'm sure they've had these discussions a million times. But Florida State's in a scenario where they have to figure that out. Whether it's basketball, whether it's track, any Olympic sport, man, it doesn't make any difference. Are they going to basically cut the fat in sports that aren't as revenue producing, if not just complete drains, on the athletic budget? I hope they don't. But at the same time, this is a football podcast, basically, for Florida State. 99.9% of the time, we're talking football here. This is that point one. Baseball team's good. Softball team's good. They've got some other sports that are good. They don't deserve to have their stuff pulled back. So how do you balance that? Because those sports deserve it. Well, you have to find a way to get the financial engine of the athletic department, aka football, back on track because it's way off the tracks right now. How do you do that? They better find a way, in my opinion, to not only tackle it the right direction, and no pun intended with that, like they've got to go at it hard. They can't miss the tackle here because every dollar matters. And you want to represent the entire university. I don't care if it's volleyball, I don't care if it's basketball, whatever, baseball. They all deserve it. And they've got to find a way to get their own funding going. Maybe it's deals outside of the traditional norm with advertisers, but they've got to find some of that too. Because it's at some point, especially if Florida State does not, and who knows how next season is going to go, but if next season is a struggle, these other sports are more at risk. They cannot have a bad 2027, like whether Norvell's back or not. 27 is just dead stop, all in. And you could argue that it's that way this season, but the way they spent in the portal, I don't think that's the case. I think this is the last stop before they're going to have to find other avenues of money. And part of it could come out of the budgets, in my opinion. This is no intel at all, to be clear. Just my opinion. I don't want to see them pull from other sports, but that's something that's very common across college athletics, has been for decades. How are they going to do that? And I'm not talking about just what's generated. I'm not talking about what the ACC and all the money that comes in from television provides. I'm talking about booster revenue too. This is where it gets really subjective. Sometimes, and I don't know how Florida State does it, but athletic departments, if a booster makes a significant contribution, they can designate where it goes, whether it's for a contract basically, or whether it's to add more to a building, put their name on it, but whatever it is. Well, if they just want money to go to football, it is part of it. But then there's that general donation to the athletic department where you get to decide. This is what I'm talking about. How does Florida State, which is, again, we're all here to see Florida State do better in football. How do they do that when they're behind in football in terms of the money they have compared to a handful of the rivals? There's no way around it. Miami and Florida have more money. I know that's not a friendly, makes very tough times, even worse, but it is true. The Bull Gator Club and the handful of boosters, big money boosters down there for that's a whole nother level. So are they going to use some of that contribution money that just, again, general fund, and it can go wherever? How much are they going to have to pull? This is why being in athletics and being in administration is not easy. I don't know how you tackle that. I don't. I mean, it's got to be accurate, whatever it is, your decision. I'm not offering a solution, and that's kind of mean. But they shouldn't have to pull away from insert sport or sports from them to help football. But then again, they put themselves in this situation in the first place. So that goes back to another point I made earlier. Same question, really. Florida State boosters, fans, are you going to donate if it's the same administration? It's one of the reasons I asked, because that also impacts every other sport too. Depending on how you set up your money, is it going into the general fund, or are you setting it aside for a specific sport? While they always try to get you to set it into the general fund so they can do what they want. Certain boosters, I know this, whether they publish it or not, at every school, it goes to X, or they don't donate. But usually you only get that if you're a major booster. I guess you could do that if you had a $100 donation in some way, shape, or form, whatever. Just make sure you understand that it is a complex job, whether you do like the people in the athletic administration or not. These kinds of decisions are not fun. I wouldn't want that responsibility. I doubt many of you would either, and just respect the fact that they have to cut the fat somewhere. And if donations continue to be down, and by my count, this past year, they were down 10.9%. That is massive. It's going to be problems for some of these other sports at some point. And I'm predicting at the end of this next season, at the end of 26, if Florida State is still trending downward in football, in other words, like a 5-7 season, if they fire Norvell, they got to, I think it's $46.9 million, if I remember correctly, that On3 reported. Now that's over time, but still, that's on the budget. And you got to hire somebody too that's going to pull from those other sports, and that's unfortunate. I don't want to see the softball team or anybody else suffer, but it's a possibility. It's real possibility. So if you're going to donate to anything, that's fine. If you get a pick, that's great, but the general fund is still important as well. Thank you once again for checking out Locked On Seminoles. I appreciate you stopping in. Please like and subscribe and check out the Everydayer Club down in the description below. This has been Locked On Seminoles.